All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. It is 2 o'clock. Again, this is Steve Marzoff, the Integrated Services Program Director for VITA. And welcome to our latest installment of Webinar Wednesday. Today, we will have a presentation from Tim Addington, our Regional Coordinator down in Region 4, Southwest Virginia. What Tim has been working on for quite a while, the last year or so, was putting together material on next generation 911, but specific to GIS. What you may recall, and it's available on our webinar website, on our website on the webinar section page, is we did a presentation about a year or so ago about next generation 911 education for decision makers. The idea was that we all are going to have to educate decision makers, whether it's our county administrator or board of supervisors or city council or the General Assembly or members of the governor's cabinet. We're going to need to educate them on next generation 911. So we put together some material, and it is on our website and available for you to use, that shows or provides PowerPoint both in a VITA format and a generic format, and information sheets and things like that, so that you can educate decision makers on what is next generation 911 and why should they care. This is taking it a step further and looking at it from a GIS point of view, and is intended to help decision makers and also GIS professionals understand what role GIS has in the next generation 911 world. So, we will have this material available on our website in the webinar area, but for you to use, to be able to explain to again your local officials or decision makers or legislators or anyone else what role GIS plays in that next generation 911 environment. So, administrative reminder, please mute your phones, either *6 to mute it through the conference bridge and then #6 to unmute, or just hit mute on your phone so we don't get a lot of background noise. We do want to keep make it available for you to ask questions. Feel free, as Tim's going through the presentation, if you have any questions, to interrupt and ask them, and then we'll also save some time at the end of the session for questions as well. So with that, please again remember to mute your phones, and with that, I will turn it over to Tim. Tim, I assume you're there?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Steve.
Go ahead, Tim.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to also thank you for attending today's webinar. One thing, when I first began implementing 911 as one of the final deployments in the Commonwealth, it was apparent that this thing called GIS, the Geographic Information System, was going to be a byproduct for the locality. Not only a byproduct, but a driving force and an integral part in the actual deployment of enhanced 911. I had images and desires of a multitude of GIS layers to be a part of the system that we were embarking upon. One of the vendors brought to me the reality and disrupted my dreams of this fabulous GIS and saying, you do realize that whatever you create, that you will have to maintain. That reality was that just as you need someone to answer the 911 call, you need someone to maintain your GIS data as well. Maintenance was critical then, it is critical now, and will be even more critical in the future of NG9-1-1. So why GIS in the NG9-1-1 environment? The legacy 911 that utilized tabular files and MSAGs, master street addressing guides, to route calls is going away. So is the selected routers that is used that use these files to route the calls to the correct PSAP. They are being replaced in the NG9-1-1 environment with GIS spatial data to locate the callers. It will be important that all entities, vendors, and all interested parties commit, support, and coordinate as we move forward. Many of you will recall that GIS was utilized in the deployment of your enhanced 911 systems. This was especially true in the deployments that took place in the late 90s to the last deployment in the Commonwealth That was in 2014. Currently, there are various approaches to gathering and maintaining GIS data throughout the Commonwealth. GIS and mapping is currently used in 911 call processing, especially with wireless callers. In the NG9-1-1 environment, GIS will even be more critical as we move away from the legacy system. Maintaining GIS will not only benefit and support NG9-1-1, it will be a value add for other uses in those localities as well. Many of you have seen this slide before. The diagram includes an overlay of governance entities. The role of the E911 Service Board, which is shown in the red circle, was approved by the General Assembly in 2016. The NG911 core services are the functions as defined by the National Emergency Number Association, NENUM, that are required to receive 911 calls into the Emergency Services IP network, or EZNet, which must be established as the legacy analog system gets replaced and routes those calls to the appropriate local 911 center. When you look at this matrix, regardless of where it is being done, whether it is a contractor, in-house GIS department, or 911 department, it is important that GIS data is updated. In E911, it should be as frequently as possible, but in the NG911 world, it needs to be near real time. It is critical that the quality of the GIS data is near perfect. GIS will continue to perform its role as it does today, in addition to the role that it will have in the NG911 environment. Additionally, the 911 Services Board is focusing on our core services, the routing, the transferability, disaster recovery, and text to 911. Unfortunately, the MSAG and ALI databases used in today's 911 system are tabular and are not geospatially referenced. As a result, NG911 will harness the power of GIS to locate and route 911 calls in the future. Many of the early adopters of NG911 have found their local GIS data lacking in its quality and accuracy. So it is critical that GIS be ready for NG911, which can take a significant amount of effort. An analysis of the current GIS and 911 databases can help identify potential issues. Several companies can run these analyses, but some charge for this service. VITA ISP, as staff support to the board, offers a free analysis if the PSAP can provide a copy of their 911 database, the MSAG, and the ALI from their 911 service provider. These analyses will identify areas where the databases differ and can help them synchronize the data. It may take considerable effort and resources from the locality's GIS entities to correct the issues identified in these analyses. However, getting the data synchronized is only half the battle. Once they are, they must be maintained as to ensure that they stay that way. This may require internal processes and workflows to be changed to improve communication and speed the GIS data updates. Recently, the VITA ISP, led by Kenny Brevard, provided the Commonwealth-wide analysis that we're conducting. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. There are three core components or layers in GIS in the NG9-1-1 environment: the PSAP coverage boundary, road center lines, and address points. The validation and or development of the PSAP coverage boundary is a collaborative response among responders, the PSAP, and GIS for all 911 call routing. The RCL, the road center line, has been collected by VITA ISP to VGen for several years and will be intricate to NG9-1-1. The ISP GIS analysts have also been collecting the address points. There will also be a call for data that will be forthcoming at the 1st of January, so we'll be gathering that information again at that point. The address point is to be at the actual structure. And if building footprints are available, the address point is within that footprint. The boundaries for NG9-1-1 correct PSAP boundary that aligns with adjoining PSAP boundaries is necessary for the routing of 911 calls. In the routing of 911 calls, many times people are confused by associating tax parcels or voter registrar boundaries. This is not necessarily, as many times parcels will cross over county boundaries into another county. The agreed upon PSAP boundaries are critical to eliminating any voids and overlaps between PSAP coverage areas. A formal regional agreement between localities is sometimes necessary. However, boundary alignment may need to be a two-stage process. First, for resolving technical restrictions, such as the inability to transfer calls across LATA boundaries due to the selective routers. The second phase would be to create the PSAP boundaries that reflects the PSAP coverage area in the NG9-1-1 environment. Recently, some groups of PSAPs have been working toward formalizing their PSAP boundaries through a series of boundary workshops. The PSAPs worked to ensure that each adjoining boundary was in alignment and then presented any proposed changes to their appropriate governing bodies and agencies for approval. VITA ISP regional coordinators can assist in coordinating boundary workshop meetings if needed. Additionally, a PSAP boundary standard work group is being formed and is being coordinated by ISP regional coordinator Brian Crumpler. As mentioned earlier, the VITA ISP, the GIS analysts have been collecting RCL data for several years now and incorporating it into the statewide RCL. The key to this effort is the local creation, maintenance, and submission of GIS data to the ISP GIS analysts. The locality GIS efforts will be more important than ever as we move forward to NG9-1-1. The GIS analysts and regional coordinators are available to assist in reviewing the data that is returned to in the RCL data releases back to the locality. In discussion of address points, along with the roads, GIS data that is created and maintained by the locality GIS departments, so is the address point GIS data that it creates and maintains. Address points are also submitted to VITA ISP for inclusion in the statewide address point layer. Every addressable structure should have an address point. The address points are critical in 911 for the routing of calls to the correct PSAP, plotting the call locations on a map, and providing valuable attribute information to emergency response personnel, key holders, structural access, hazards, etc. VITA ISP is working on several best practices. One of the initial best practices is the 911 addressing operational and administrative best practice, which is available at the link within this webinar and is on the VITA ISP website. In some jurisdictions, there may be multiple addressing authorities within a PSAP jurisdiction. This may be problematic and will need to rely on coordination to ensure consistency, avoid duplication, and ultimately that the address points are submitted to the entity responsible for collection of address points in the Commonwealth. We want to review the local ordinances and or processes for assigning addresses to be sure everything is up to par and reevaluating those as possible. VITA currently aggregates local data such as road center lines and address points. In the NG9-1-1 environment, there will be an update process to send the EZNet to the road center lines, address points, PSAP boundaries, and response zones to process these calls. The intermediary between the data that VITA ISP collects and the EZNet is not defined at this point, but will be in the future. The provisioning of the GIS data into the EZNet will be more often than currently collected. This will mean additional workload for the GIS community. The locality's maintenance of data is mission critical. We cannot emphasize that enough for everyone to realize how mission critical the maintenance portion is. Is your GIS data ready for NG9-1-1? Each locality's GIS data needs IMSAG ALLY GIS analysis to determine their current state. These analyses are critical to provide local GIS departments the information they need to improve the GIS data and prepare it for the NG9-1-1 environment. These analyses are being conducted by VITA ISP GIS analyst Kenny Brevard and are also available by various vendors. Recently, these analyses were conducted, and a webinar was presented on September 28th and is available. If you want to know more about the analysis, reach out to your VITA ISP regional coordinator for some more information on that. So just briefly on the data analysis, it's an evolving process that is having to be done nationally, GIS Data Quality Report. Within these, we're having geodatabase of all the identified inconsistencies, provider analysis results, RCL address range inconsistencies, RCL geometry inconsistencies, address point inconsistencies, IMSAG analysis results, ALLY analysis results. And I guess one of the best components of this product, of these analysis, is the visual portion of that is the fishbone map of the actual and the theoretical addresses. And it emphasizes that this is not a once and done. It's something that has to be maintained and looked at intervals throughout the year. As a result of the data analysis that were performed by Kenny on the statewide analysis, there were several grant requests received this year for NG9-1-1 GIS work. So after the analysis is complete, begin by assessing your data, making any needed improvements, and optimizing workflows to assure data integrity. Only the locality can determine if inconsistencies are errors or if they reflect reality. Share this information with administration at your county or city level. Your successes and work is needed to make this successful in the NG9-1-1 world. Check with your ISP regional coordinator for any grant opportunities, and reach out to the consultants and the ISP staff for any advice that is needed. Also, the VGN analyst and the regional coordinators are available for on-site visits to review and go over the analysis that prepared. So in conclusion, involve yourself in the process. Maintain and submit your GIS data on a regular basis. Prepare for those changes and evolving need for up-to-date GIS data. Asking questions to see what needs to be done with your GIS to be ready for NG9-1-1. Listening, learning at every opportunity that you have as we move forward. Educating yourself, decision makers, staff on the importance and the need for resources and well-maintained, up-to-date GIS data. Now, moving forward, there's some other activities. We talked about the PSET boundary work group that's in place. There is also GIS Steering Committee that's being led by Lyle Hornbaker, the Eastern Regional Coordinator for Region 5. And so that is in the process as well. So I wanted to mention a couple things on that. So within that, they have a mission statement that is developed for the GIS Steering Committee. And basically, it may not just be materials. The committee will consider programs or processes if they meet the goals of the deliverables that they have in place. The Steering Committee will set direction and task priorities. The feedback work group will assist in reviewing and commenting on deliverables produced by the Steering Committee. The Steering Committee may reach out to subject matter experts in the Commonwealth to assist with the creation of materials and programs. So there's a lot of involvement as we're moving forward in NG9-1-1. So stay tuned with all this and participate. It's really critical that as these changes are taking place, that you participate, educate, and be ready for these changes. Now, at this time, We'll see if there are any questions from anyone. Anyone? Any questions? One thing that I've got up on the screen is the map of the regional coordinators' coverage areas. If you do not have any questions at this point in time, you can always reach out to any of the regional coordinators and be able to assist you with that. Steve, are you still on the line?
I am.
Good.
Are there any questions for Tim? Again, we schedule an hour for these webinars, but not all of them are going to take a full hour. But they are for your benefit. So if you have any questions about how GIS fits into the next generation 9-1 puzzle, feel free to ask it. Any questions?
Hi, this is Tom Roberts in Buena Vista.
Hi.
And I just wanted to ask, what's our timeline for implementation of NG9-1-1?
So we've been working with the Regional Advisory Council, which is made up of PSAP, GIS, and IT representatives from around the state on that very question. And right now, we're hopeful. There's been for planning purposes, we've looked at deployment of the state by selective router pair. And if you go to our website under the Regional Advisory Council information, it's on the left-hand side of our website. There should be a link to the Regional Advisory Council page. There's a information that the group that was led by Steve McMurray from Region 7 and Jolena Young from Region 4 of a rollout over 5 years. So we're hopeful. Northern Virginia is in year 1, and they're already working on deployment. And then from there, it rolls out across the state by, again, selective router pair, because we need to do it in a controlled way just to make sure that we don't have that we're able to free up costs of the selective routers and so forth. So we're looking over the next 5 years, between 2017 and 2022 is the time period that we're looking at. Now, where Buena Vista would fall or the Rockbridge Regional Dispatch Center would fall will depend on when we do the selective router pair that would be that serves the PSAP. And I don't remember off the top of my head where that falls.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Any other questions? Now, it's important to remember one of the guiding principles of the 911 Services Board is doing nothing is not an option, and that's because the 911 network that we currently have, which is analog-based, also called TDM or camera trunking or whatever you want to call it, is going away. There's no doubt of that. Verizon and CenturyLink are migrating to the same thing that we're migrating to, which is IP for their base telephone service. And as users move off of the analog network, we definitely don't want to be the last people on it. And it is occurring very quickly. So we have to make this move. We don't have a choice. And as Tim explained, Next Generation 9-1 relies on GIS data for the routing and database. It's not anything really super complicated, as we've described on other calls. It's ultimately just taking either the civic address and geocoding it, or taking the longitude and latitude and determining in which polygon of the PSAP service area either that address point or that excuse me, that address point or that longitude and latitude resides, and then passing that information to the routing network system that will then route to the appropriate PSAP for that PSAP boundary area. So it's not really complicated what gets done, but it is absolutely essential that the every civic address that could be passed to the 911 system at the time of a call and every longitude and latitude resolves to some PSAP area. and gets routed to that appropriate PSAP. And you know, the National Emergency Number Association has, as a standard, indicated that they want to use road centerline for that geocoding because they felt that going for address points was probably too difficult nationally. But I think we can shoot higher in Virginia, and I'm confident with the data we've already collected from most or many of you or all of you throughout the Commonwealth that we're close. And with the analysis that Kenny Brevard has done, we know that we're doing well in having address points that align with the ALI database as it exists today. But you know, we do have some areas that need to have improvement, and we also, as Tim said, we're going to need to make sure that these investments continue to sustain the data as quickly as possible, so that there's not much latency in the data, but also with an accuracy so that we know when we get an address that we actually know where it is. So we were very fortunate this year to have about $2 million, give or take, in GIS, next generation GIS grants that will be going before the board on January 12th, and we expect them to receive funding to do GIS cleanup work and to get the address point databases improved and road center lines improved and so on. And you know, we support that because it is going to be necessary. So you know, we hope that today's session is a reminder for some of you, is maybe new information for some of you of the importance of GIS. And then, as I said in the start, this material will be available for you to use locally to convince your Board of Supervisors, council, manager, city manager, county administrator of the importance and the need for investment into GIS, because it is going to be the linchpin for the routing of GIS or for 911 calls in the future. Any last questions before we wrap up for today and give you back a half hour for today?
I had a question.
Yes.
This is Shirley Wood in Bedford County. And did I hear Tim say that the analysis would be repeated in January, just like what we had gotten before, or?
So the analysis will be repeated. Part of it will be. We're not able to get the MSAG and ALI from Verizon and CenturyLink twice a year. We may, underline the word may, be able to get it once a year. We got it the one time from them as a one-time deal, and we do want to talk to them about getting that data again. But outside of doing the MSAG and the ALI comparison, we do have the ability to run and will be running the GIS data quality checks, things like parity and sequence and directionality and those sorts of things. So that part of the analysis that we did before, we will be repeating with the data that you submit, and we will be making a data request in January. We're trying to only do it twice a year, January and July, and then processing them throughout the rest of the year and getting them. We do release, for those of you who have a need for a statewide road center line, we do release the statewide road center line quarterly, and then there are some localities that we can go pull the data from, some of the larger localities. So some of those will do more than just twice a year. We might do them every quarter, but we're committed to doing that and getting your data and then rolling it into the statewide every 6 months. It probably isn't going to be adequate for next generation 911, but we don't know exactly what it's going to look like in the future. So, yeah, that's still, the requirements are still to be defined for some of that. But we will be running the GIS data quality checks on your data that you submit in January.
Thank you.
Any other last questions? If not, thank you all for joining. We will be putting a recording of this up on our website. And if you have any questions, as Tim said, reach out to your regional coordinator. Otherwise, have a great rest of the day and a happy holiday season. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.